Kai clear.
So, assalamu alaikum. Yanzu dai ba repetition kuma ai.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
So, jama'a takaice dai before they start, they more apologize for the late start. They more expect more abunga, more listeners to join us at this. So now I recommend they also saw duban football. Baba mo mujira. Our priority is our community and what we seek to achieve collectively as a group or as a community. So at Takachide, you muna tarida dan wanmu Mr. Idris Miftau. Then one also originally Africa and then Ghana to be specific. UOJ and them more on how to deal with stress and anxiety, which is a common feature of our general well-being in this country. Most people also are in denial. A lot of us have been in denial. Meanwhile, there are different ways of coping and then accessing support in order to address those issues. So most of them are in denial until it's fairly too little, too late for remedy. So inshallah, that's a chicken introduction and I'm a lecture more details with regards to what they do with regards to sentence in, is it Manchester? Am I right? Naam. So without much ado, welcome to Zumuntah Association UK. This is our one and only platform through which we reach out to all members of our community, both within and then far away from London. So we are very pleased to have you here. And just to announce also, we run monthly Zoom lecture sessions, legal, health, whatever sector that we get, or we get people to deliver lecture on or to enhance our know-how in terms of our living conditions in this country. So Atagachide, Mr. Idris, you're welcome to our platform and you may start from this point. Just to remind everyone, this program is live on Circuit TV, YouTube. So as the lecture goes on, there are other people who might not be able to join via Zoom, but they are watching it via YouTube. And after the lecture, the recorded version of it will still be available on YouTube. So, Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Idris.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share the little knowledge that we've been helping others with. I thought it was fitting to share some of this wisdom with people within my own community. So thanks for having me here, inshallah.
You're most welcome.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
So mental health is a common illness now. They were saying that in UK it's costing us maybe about £105 billion a year.
Wow.
You know, mental health related issues, and also it's been said that 1 in 4 of us will experience some kind of mental health during the year. So if you are sat in a bus with 8 people, 2 at least will have some kind of mental health difficulty. Okay. So it's pretty close. And if we look at adults, currently on daily basis, at least 1 in 6 adults will have some kind of mental health concern a day in UK. You know, but there's always a shame associated with it because of how it's been presented and how it's been perceived. You know, what we always say to people is that the client that I tend to work with is to look at it as that you can take your car for an MOT. There is nothing wrong with also taking care of your brain if indeed it needs looking after. Okay. So one of the common mental health concerns that is prevalent among all of us
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. I've muted everyone so that there will be less interference.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, one of the
Virgin no so use right. Sadiq, do you go to bed in the
So one of the very common mental health concern that is very prevalent among the population is depression. With depression, it's a condition that affects the way you see the world and the way you react to the world. It also affects the way you perceive things. Sometimes you might hear people say he's become short fuse or his tolerance level has gone down. And we can't understand what is going on with this person. You know, and perhaps to help you and I or any other person that may benefit from this awareness session is first for us to look at what is it and what are some of the symptoms of depression that we can all start to look for either in us or in others, or when we come across in our communities, in order to support those who might have it but don't know exactly what that is. So there are some common features that are very prominent when someone is depressed. If the person is having low mood nearly every day, you know, consistently for a period of two weeks, you know, can't seem to get going, almost feeling like they're up against it, you know, and the mood remains low for 2 weeks. That's one of the signs to look out for. The other sign is having a reduced urge in terms of your interest in things. Things that used to be very pleasurable, they don't have the same meaning anymore. You don't feel like doing it. It feels like a chore, even though it used to be pleasurable activity, whether it's going to see friends, whether it's going to see family members, whether it's even going to the mosque or the church that sometimes you used to look forward to, but all of a sudden, those things don't have the same meaning to you anymore. You become quite detached or nonchalant. One of my clients described it like a sense of deadness inside, where you become almost non-reactive to things, even though they they used to have a very pleasurable feel to it for you. So that's another symptoms that we can look out for. And if someone is consistently having this for 2 weeks, they might have one of the symptoms that can be looked at. So low mood is the first one. Marked diminished interest in pleasurable activities, almost all activities, nearly every day, then we'll say that the person might be having some of the symptoms. So look out for such symptoms when the person is talking, or observe this in people in our communities, and to let them know that perhaps it's worth them looking at it and having a chat with somebody if they can. We'll come back to the kind of help people can get, inshallah. Another symptoms of depression is the significant weight loss. Okay. Or for some people, they might have increase in weight. And if this happens nearly every day for a period of 2 weeks, then you may have one of the symptoms of depression. So again, low mood, diminished interest in pleasurable activity, and significant changes in your weight, either increase in weight or reduction in weight. Now, the key factor sometimes is that because our mood is very low, that's right, because our mood is very low, sometimes, and our brain is becoming a lot busier, because thinking about one thing and moving from one thing to another, and can make a head and tail of what your brain is trying to tell you. What tends to happen, in my experience, and from what some of my colleagues are sharing with me, with us, is that your brain activity, as it increases the glucose level. That's the mental energy in your mind that you use. The more busier it is, the more you are going to use that, and which makes you also want to eat to compensate. So unfortunately, if your digestive system is very slow, then you're bound to have an increased weight, because you are almost eating to cope with the distress. And in doing that, you are having to eat more than you require. So it will start coming out on the side and everywhere you can imagine, because what you need and what you are actually eating is not in proportion. Another factor within that is, for some people, because of the nature of the worry that they might be having and the intrusive thought that is going on in their mind consistently, they may become so preoccupied that they might not be able to remember to eat. So for another group of people, you may experience a reduction in weight, because they just don't have the appetite because of this preoccupation with the distress that is associated with the low mood. So another symptom that we can look out for is slowing down of your thoughts and reduction of your physical movement. Because the brain becomes very busier, thinking about things that are not in your control and worrying about it. And sometimes it drains the person going through the experience. If you are not eating and your brain is so busy, you may end up being in a deficit energy-wise. So things that you used to do, you can't do them. Now, people might perceive you as being lazy, but actually, if you're already so drained, regardless of what you want to do, you can't do it. you know. But on the outside, it might seem like the person doesn't want to push themselves, they've overly relaxed and stuff like that. But sometimes it's important to look out for whether there's something else. Is that laziness, or is that actually there's also a physiological impact of the low mood? So you are thinking too much, but you are eating less. There's no energy left. So there's no energy really to look forward to things, and there's no energy to do things. So your mental capacity becomes slow because you can't think quick enough, because mentally you're quite drained. Another symptoms as a result of all the combinations of what we've spoken about is the idea of becoming very fatigued or loss of energy. If this happens nearly every day in a period of 2 weeks, then you could also have another symptoms of depression. So fatigued that you don't look forward to things. Things start to build up. But if there are essential things in your life and you don't have energy to do them, it's gonna increase your stress level because things aren't being addressed. Instead, they are becoming increased, but your energy level isn't up to standard for you to be able to do them. Your frustration increases, and so does your stress. If you are living with other people, they might think that you are not pulling your weight. If you are living with a wife, they must also think that there's something wrong, but that is because God is own precious that comes with that. So when this happens and you feel fatigued and can't seem to move over a specific period of time for 2 weeks, then we'll say that you meet one of the symptoms of depression. Now, with everything that is going on, your energy level has gone down, you have intrusive thought that you cannot control, you feel you've lost weight, perhaps worried about concerns that people are having about you. That can create the next symptom, which is the feeling of worthlessness. You feel worthless, that you are not able to be either the lady that you used to be, or the man that you used to be, or the daughter that you aspire to be, because you feel you are up against it. Each angle, you can't work because your energy levels is low. You can't seem to get yourself going. And people are concerned, but also you are concerned, but you don't know what to do, and you don't know what that is. So again, look out for those symptoms. And also because of that, people start to feel hopeless, that they are not in control of their life anymore. You hear in certain quarters, he's giving up, or she's giving up, she's not pulling her weight, she's not the person we know. But it could be all these factors. And the more those pressures comes up, the more helpless and hopeless the person start to feel. Linked with that feeling of worthlessness is inappropriate guilt. Nobody will go and seek to be depressed. It's not a pleasurable experience. So when someone is going through that, either due to all these factors we've spoken about, they need help. They need guidance. They need support. Because they themselves will be grieving for how things used to be. Grieving for what they could do, what they could have been able to do, and can't seem to get themselves going. So when we want what is best for them, so do they. But for some reason, in this state of mind, what we notice in clinically that these people feel stuck. Wondering what has happened to them, wondering whether they will ever be able to overcome it. They get offered the appointment because they don't have the energy, they can't honor the appointment. And that starts to create even more further guilt. So people will start to feel almost every day a sense of guilt for actually something that they can blame themselves for. And what we do clinically is to explain to the individual that it's already hard to go through this difficult life experience without having to put this pressure on yourself, punishing yourself, giving yourself a hard time for something that is an illness. And the more guilt you feel, the more energy it takes away from you. It's like you've ended up in a quicksand, you can't get out of it. So when you see somebody, a friend, a husband, a sister, a grandma, encourage them not to blame themselves. What they need is to understand that this is a condition that changes the way you see the world, how you feel about yourself, and how you perceive the future to look, because the future looks quite gloomy. So inappropriate guilt is one of the features of depression. When that happens nearly every day in 2 weeks, you might say that the person have got one of the symptoms. The other feature, which is the 7 symptoms of depression, is the diminished ability to think or concentrate, or indecisiveness nearly every day, because your thinking has slowed down, partly because the neurons in your brain are not firing like they used to do, which is part of the illness. If you are overeating, you become very heavy. If you become heavy, your movement is slowed. If you have the active brain and your brain is overworking 110 miles per hour and you are not eating, you will be in deficit in terms of energy. So your brain capacity and its ability to concentrate becomes less because it's not having the energy it used to have. It becomes preoccupied. And because it's preoccupied, things that you used to retain, there's no space for them. You can't problem solve because it's all there and the pressure is mounting and your tolerance levels start to go down. Again, if these things happen every day, consistently for over 2-week period, then we will say that you are meeting one of the symptoms of depression. And it's important then to try and seek help rather than continue to blame yourself. I'm hoping community like this that you have can use this platform to look out for each other in that sense, ensure that there's no shame to it. These are normal phenomena. 1 in 4 of us will have some sort of mental health concern every year. So if you have 20 people, probably 4. Or 5 of that 20 people will have some kind of mental health concerns. And it's important we start talking about it. It's important that we start making it become one of the things that we can use on this platform as such as you've got here, to address these concerns and take the shame that is associated with it. The final symptoms, which is symptom number 8 that we can look at, because of all the lack of energy, the lack of pleasure in doing things, the lack of a sense of not getting anywhere, a sense of feeling guilt. There is also the sense, for some people, they might start to have thought about not wanting to be alive anymore, because they can't see a way out. Majority of people in our communities, maybe because of our faith, the thought of ending our life might not be as common as in other communities. But some of us are very far away from home. That sense of community that we used to have in a big compound, most of us now live in isolation. And if somebody is really, really severely unwell to this degree, there's possibility that through no intention to harm oneself, but because the brain is not working as it used to be, what may not be appropriate could be seen as appropriate, just a way. And that is why it's very important. That's why it's very important for you and I to look out for each other in this regard. We are living very far away place now, and even we are in communities, we live in different areas in London, US, or whatever that we may be. If we don't have that social contact, and someone is in this state,
Sorry, Mr. Idris, you are muted. Could you unmute yourself, please? No, you are still muted. Yeah, that's right. You're back on.
Alhamdulillah. Are you all hearing me all right?
Yes, yes, please.
Alhamdulillah. So we're saying that the last feature there is that of the suicidal ideation and sense of severe hopelessness. And often back home, we don't tend to see this regularly, partly because we are a close-knit community. Someone will come and drag you, let's go, or you go to a base and sit down and have a conversation. It makes you forget what you are worrying about. But here, it's very common. And what we are noticing, people within our community don't access mental health services. So by the time they get to the time they come to see us, they really, really far and gone. And what we're noticing is partly because of the shame associated with the condition, that people would think I'm mad, people would think that I've lost it, and that also leave us to withhold ourselves from getting the support we need. So we need to break that barrier. So if you meet 5 of those symptoms consistently for 2 weeks, then we will say you are depressed. So Going through that again briefly to refresh our mind. The first one is feeling low mood regularly for 2 weeks. It's one of the symptoms. The second one is diminished interest in pleasurable activities that you used to enjoy. That will be a second factor. If you do have that consistently within a 2 weeks period, we say that you meet one of the criteria. And you need to meet 5. The third one is significant weight loss or increase in weight will be another factor. Either because you are eating to cope or you feel so overwhelmed that you can't eat. The fourth factor is slowing down of your thoughts. And for some people, even their physical movement become slowed down, partly because of the condition, partly because we're not eating as we should be, or we're not walking enough. But the nature of the presentation is that sometimes it drains the energy you do have. You want to do things, but you can't. And then the fifth symptoms is fatigue or loss of energy. If that also happens regularly, consistently over a 2-week period, then we say you have another symptoms of depression. And the sixth one is feeling of worthlessness or inappropriate guilt will be another factor. And the last two we have here is diminished ability to think or concentrate, or problem-solving difficulties, partly because your brain has slowed down, partly because you're not having enough energy to nourish yourself, let alone to be able to think adequately. And the final symptom is that suicidal ideation, either feeling you can't cope, feeling isolated, and feeling withdrawn, and not feeling you can go and present to people. Unfortunately, what majority of people we work with think is that I'm gonna wait and sort myself out, then they're gonna see the best version of me. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. You have to reach out and then resource yourself that way. Isolating yourself is part of the symptoms. So in short, that's the intro to depression and the anxiety relating stuff that comes with that. But often when we have these symptoms, it's not always depression. You could have other things that comes with that, whether it's worry or trauma or other relationship difficulties that may also be linked with the stress of being depressed. So nearly 50% of depression, people with depressive symptoms will have other conditions attached to it. Either you have panic attack, either you have post-traumatic stress, either you have low self-esteem, or other relating problems linked with feeling low and not feeling in control. So when you have all these factors combined with life pressures, council tax, rent, MOTs, name it, and you add all to it at the time where your tolerance level is really, really low, you feel you are up against it. And so I would say that it's okay to what you are feeling, but don't suffer in silence. Ask for help, seek for help, and there is help out there. I think I've spoken enough, and I will keep quiet a bit and see whether there's any question for me to answer. I'm mindful of our time as well.
That's right. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much for that very inspiring intro to the whole topic. Maybe before we ask questions, probably I would like to ask for more emphasis on the denial aspect of our people. That is our common behavior that we clearly notice there's something fundamentally wrong, but we just keep being in denial continuously until the last minute. And I know the stigma is when you say you have depression, they just conclude that, oh, yeah, hauka, and all of that. Okay. So, yeah. So probably if you could elaborate more on the spectrum.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe just for people to know, because just being depressed doesn't mean you've gone mad. In our local language, say, how can all of that? There are remedies to all of that until you get to the stage where you need to be, should I say, hospitalized under doors and all of that.
Okay. Okay. So you have something like this going on in your brain.
Okay.
You know, so there is no, it's like going around a roundabout. There's no exit.
That's right.
You know, and the more this carries on, the busier your mind starts to become.
Okay.
You know, now, in this state, the person is not able to think clearly.
Okay.
Make it okay. Ama, the person is not even in the frame of mind to say okay.
Okay.
So trying to reason with somebody who is in this state, they don't even sometimes know aware.
Yeah. Wow.
So trying to figure out your way out in this state of mind, you don't know.
That's right.
And your capacity to reason, your capacity to deal with things in a logical manner is significantly reduced.
Reduced, yeah.
And when people approach somebody in this state of mind, the tolerance level is very, very small.
Okay.
So things turn into an argument. So people become very cautious.
Okay.
So now okay, abarani, and then people talk mobarmishi maganaj, and then
it's gone.
And you get left with it.
Yeah.
So if someone is in that state and they isolate themselves, there's no way to correct those behaviors. And that becomes very dangerous for the person.
Yeah.
You know, if we add that to kanda nike film bang samani, I mean one came in, and then it confuses the brain even more.
Yeah, I think that's an important angle.
So the opportunity to actually address the problem when it is at smaller source is missed. Na ce ban da lafiya an ce na yawo ka goma na saura da shi haka nan. To she hankalin kuma na bugawa za shi.
Oh, yeah.
Muka bar mutane sun sani an ce akwai wani mai hauka cikin gidanmu saboda shi mu kifin shi. Shi haukan kuma na abin na tashiwa yana tashi da level da baya boye kuma.
Okay. Yeah.
Wanga ba abin kunya ba ne. Ina drive lorry na shi na samu flat tire. She na je na sa cikin daji na ce ban son kowa ya gani. Ya zan yin kai wurin mechanic.
No help.
To hankalinka kuma kamar mota ne. Sometimes maybe grease ya wanga kura ya shiga cikin. Ina need a gyara shi kuma. Saboda shi dokan motan ka kai wurin mechanic mai kyau ne domin zai bar ka ci gaba.
Okay.
Kankashe ka zo ka ce hankalinka ya stop, amma kai baka zuwa wurin gyara, ya za kai ka ci gaba? Saboda ci mu cire kunyan nan ciki, it's not a shameful thing.
Yeah.
Ka fadi ma kowa a dai mu kifin shi dai cikin gida dai mu gan abin da Allah zai yi. To Allah kuma ya ce kaman kaka bar rakuminka yana yawo ka ce ka bar ma Allah, ka daure shi tukun ka ce ka bar ma Allah. Hankalinmu kuma haka nan ne. In wani abu na damun ka, there is a way to which things are being addressed. Prayers is one of many of those things. But prayers alone is not enough. Kuma the other bit is cikin wannan denial kuma aje kaman the notion of kaga gwada ragwanci ya kake haka nan. Wanga ba ragwanci bane, ciwo ne. You know, World Health Organization Afodimuna by 2020 is the second burdensome illness beside heart condition all over the world. Aragwanci bane, ciwo ne. This is an illness which can easily be addressed, but it cannot be addressed in hiding.
Yeah. That's good.
So ka boye a fito fili inda je wurin likita ne a duba, in kana gida ne ka bar a duba ko an samu wani mental health practitioner da zai yi magana da kai, ya so wangan hankalin ya samu yana aiki kadan har mu gan abinda. But there is a help. In kuma turai kake, kaka isolate kanka. Domin ka isolate kanka, it's going to make the condition worse. In kai da kanka ka gan halakanka na sakewa, kana gani kaman zuwa ma wanka ma goga bakinka ma ya fara zama ma wuya. Wasu ma har ya zo kai kaman mai shi ma na sa riga guda for months. In yayi bole ma cikin gadon shi bai ya gyara. Ba abin boyewa bane. In ana so yayi sauki, shi a je jinya. So please don't hide it. The key factor to reducing it is talking about it. Addressing social isolation, taking the shame away from it. And coming clean. So that the deniability is a factor that I guess it's a common issue here, even in Europe, that we don't access mental health services until it's too late. So the interventions that we are normally giving is the aggressive end of the treatment.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, then it confirms our negative belief about psychiatry and treatment that are associated with it. But if we can catch it early, if we can start talking and addressing some of these concerns, looking at where we can give, whether it's online support that we can get people to start to join, is at least to normalize it, to recognize that if you join a group and you see that there are 2, 4, 5 people that are also going through the same situation. It helps you to see that there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you very much, Mr. Idris Miftau. Just so those of you who have just joined us halfway, Mr. Idris Miftau is our brother. He's a psychotherapist and they run a clinic in Manchester. So where they provide psychotherapeutic support to people. I know people might not be able to ask questions openly due to, once again, some of the issues that he has just talked about, but we are happy. We will publish his contact details in case some of you need to contact him after this program. You're more than welcome to do that. Mr. Idris, I've got another question that has just been sent to me. You know, those of us from African background, we tend to speak most of the time at a very high tone. I know Ghanaians, it seems your video is frozen. Can you hear me, please? Yeah, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself, please? Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So the question is, the way we talk at a very high tone, especially when we congregate to have a conversation, someone who doesn't know us, who is not familiar with our cultural background, may think we are fighting. And then considering that we have children born and bred in this country at a very young age, if they happen to come into the community, that high tone conversation, does it have any negative impact on their mental health?
Okay. Good question. When we travel,
Yeah.
you know, even ourselves,
Yeah.
you know, your brain start to adapt to your new environment.
Yeah.
You know, that is how we've survived as species.
Yeah.
You know, so the condition under which you grow up is the condition under which you get used to.
That's right.
So if the majority of the people in the environment behave in a particular way, that's what you are going to get used to. So anything out of that ordinary start to create a sense of alertness in your brain. It stands out.
Okay.
You know, and when that happens consistently, it starts to worry you. So whenever you are going there, you have something we call anticipatory anxiety. You worry about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we might know that we are not fighting, but they don't. Often when they've seen that, it's led to event. So we need to be mindful.
Okay.
Adjust to the environment and almost understand that they might not be okay for them. It might not be okay for them because the environment is different. The condition under which they've grown is different. So purely based on that, the way they perceive and react to the world will be totally different from the way they, you know, the condition under which we came from.
Okay.
So we have to consciously do something about it. It's not going to be easy because when the excitement comes up, even when someone is stood in front of you, you're so excited that it's almost like the person is 12 miles away from you.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, we have to adapt to the condition that we find ourselves. If not for us, but for the kids that we are having in this community, they might not necessarily respond the same way.
Okay. That's good. So thank you very much for the advice and then words of admonition. We hope to relate that to members of our community. I know the questionnaire. Sorry, there's another question coming through. I'm just trying to see if I could read it out.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know whether maybe you say, please, how can a person stokes for help in a community, although confidentiality is an important part, but being an African, you have the fear that whenever you talk, maybe talk for help in the community, it will spread out, please. Yeah, I think it was, just to summarize the question, it's like within, those of us within the African community, sometimes you feel down, or some of the symptoms you've explained, you experience that, but you want to reach out for help, but for fear of the information being sent across so quickly that there's this ABC happening to you, how do you then go about reaching out for help or asking for help?
Okay. Yeah. That's a very good question. Even from our own clinic, not even Africans, every person that walks into the clinic deserves some privacy.
Yeah.
You know, because these are very sensitive stuff that the person will be sharing. You know, it's like they are going against their instincts. Their mind is telling them otherwise, but they need the help. So let's not make it even more difficult and make people go underground and not wanting to share how they feel. So what we need is to have a structure in place. If it's a community, there are people that are allocated to support when these matters comes up, and the confidentiality is a key aspect of it. If they get guided to the RGP, then the process is around that way. There's a structure there in place to ensure that the person gets the help they need, and making them feel safe to say what is going on is an essential part of the recovery. So if you happen to be the trustee that the person has opened up to, even though you may enjoy having conversation, that is important to hold back. It has to be on needs only basis. You know, we can't tell people to open up, and then when they open up, we make example of them. So right from the time of disclosure to for them getting the treatment, it's very, very important to protect their privacy. You know, me yasa babar mun sani ba, ba komai ake bar mutane ke sani ba. You know,
Yeah.
because the condition is different. You know, we haven't gotten to a place where this can be something that people can just come out and say, especially in our community. So we need to tread carefully. We want more people to come and say, I'm struggling. Where can I go? And leave it as that. Guide them to the right, signpost them, but don't broadcast it.
That's right.
So if this platform and you have the community that people are coming to seek for help or to say, where can I go? I will encourage that you have people that are designed to keep the information confidential. I don't encourage that for it to be everyone will have to know about it, because we know it might not be productive for the person, because this is a very important information that they are volunteering to give, and it's encouraged that that is respected and managed efficiently.
Yeah, that's right.
I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, I think you've just summarized it. It's about confidentiality, and I know these formal sectors have policies of keeping every information very confidential, and then in terms of therapeutic support that is being offered, is purely on confidential basis.
Yeah.
So I think you've dealt with it appropriately. And thank you very much for that. There is a follow-up question. The person wants to know more about anxiety and stress. I know we've talked so much about mental health, but anxiety has been, I'm very conscious of the time. We aim to finish at 8, but we've gone past the hour mark. Probably with your permission, can we drag up to 8:30?
Okay.
Please. So that when you answer that, when you deal with that aspect, if there is no further question, we may wrap up at that point. But we deal with anxiety and stress.
Okay. So anxiety, when you look at it, there's some key features to that. Either, let me just see, you have someone who feeling nervous all the time, regularly, and that will be one of, whether there's a reason to be anxious or not. They sometimes describe themselves, well, I'm a warrior. Ko abinda ya kamata a ji tsoro ne, ina jin tsoro, ko ba abinda kamata a ji tsoro ba, ina jin tsoro, because it's just, they become quite preoccupied with it, So one, they worry too much. The other bit is that not being able to stop and control that worrying. It feels like when I start worrying, I can't stop. And if that happens consistently, we will say that actually also, and it's causing the person distress. And if that consistently continue for a period of 6 months, then we'll say that they are meeting the criteria for anxiety.
Okay.
And then you have worrying too much about other things, especially sometimes things that are not even in their control. But the brain can't stop. So constantly, the brain is busy. And when the brain is busy, there's no room for other things. So easily get overwhelmed, because the busier the brain, the less room to relax, the less room to relax. You feel tense. So you're carrying stress hormones quite regularly. So as soon as something slightly happens, already because the body is quite tense, we become quite stressed quickly. There's something we call window of tolerance. The more stressed you are already, the lesser your window of tolerance. And the smaller your window of tolerance, your ability to deal with stress or challenging things becomes minimized. Other features of it, inability to relax obviously because of the preoccupation about what might go wrong, what could go wrong. And the other bit is when someone is anxious consistently, even ability to sit down feels wrong because they have to be on the go all the time. You know, so don't know when to stop. But if you don't know when to stop, there is no room for the brain to charge itself. It's like using a mobile phone, but you never really charge it.
Yeah.
And then you have other features that because the window of tolerance becomes smaller, you start to feel the person quite abrupt, very irritable, because they're constantly carrying stress. And based on all these factors, you will then have feeling afraid and thinking that something awful may happen. But it's a felt sense. It might not always mean something will happen. It's just how the person feels in their body. And they can't separate that from reality. So when you have that together with a stressful life, then you become very vulnerable to stress. You know, you give the person 100 positive things, the brain looked at 1,000 negative things. So there is no balance.
Okay.
So when you have that with lower in window of tolerance and increased stress and negative prediction, you are left with a situation where you can't see an end to it. So with the depression, there is less energy to do things. Here, you are so worried that it burns you out. So when you are in that cycle, for you to think clearly, you have to almost have been able to calm yourself down. But if the brain is going and going, there's no almost like a stop button to it. It's like I'm trying to put a fire out, but I'm targeting the smoke. What happens to the fire?
Mm-hmm.
So you'll be, and it will keep coming, and they can't see an end to it. So naturally, you'll be carrying stress hormones consistently. It also means that it's very difficult to really not be stressed. Even when things are going well, you are anticipating something might go wrong. So some people might have this stress reaction and anxiety relating to it, and that may make them depressed. And the reverse is also true. Some may have depression, and because of that, they worry, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to keep on top? And that may also make them depressed and stressed.
Okay.
So the conditions almost link with each other in some way. Nearly 50% of the condition will have one link to it.
Okay.
Either I'm depressed because I'm anxious, or I'm anxious because I'm depressed.
Okay. Yeah. Can I ask a follow-up question based on that?
Okay.
In terms of anxiety, does it cause stomach ache or frequent use of the toilet? I know a lot of people sweat, but others may have stomach ache or stomach cramps, and then other things.
That's right. You will have people might have their stomach churning. They will be frequenting the toilet quite regularly. They may feel nauseous, and others may feel it's like their limbs becomes very weak.
Okay.
They, Sometimes when it's almost like if you have a headmaster that is very, very stern, and you get called to go into that feeling, you get your stomach starts going, you feel your arms are starting to become weak because you're anticipating. And sometimes you want to rush to go and use the bathroom. They are all symptoms of anxiety. And based on that, sometimes it's very difficult for people to eat when they have that churning in their stomach.
Okay.
With the sweating side of it, that's innate. It activates our threat system, because back in the wild, normally when we are being chased by wild animal, we sweat so that when it catches us, we can release our hand.
Okay.
Even now, we still have got it in our body. So when we feel fine, feel like put in the corner, the body starts to, excrete those things again. You can't tell the difference. But that in certain situations makes people even more self-conscious, which makes them even more anxious.
So probably we have just few follow-up questions. I think this will be the last set of questions. Does anxiety cause relapse, panic attacks?
When you have general anxiety, the criteria is no panic attack, but panic attack is a form of anxiety. We have a generalized anxiety, we have social anxiety, and we have panic attack.
Okay.
So the panic attack is where someone with that form of anxiety, you can see the breathing is compromised. You hear people say, "I'm in mutu." So it's almost like, and they go dizzy, can't seem to get themselves, because the brain is overworking. They're not breathing properly, so the oxygen is not going where it should go, because the focus is to help the person survive in some way. Unfortunately, the breathing is not helping the body, because you are shallow, you are breathing shallowly, whereas you need a deep breathing for the oxygen to get to every part of the body. So when that happens, it's become counterproductive, and then you hear someone who says, I will have to hold on to something to keep myself safe. And in those regards, what we tend to do is to get people to understand that you are not going to die. It's just that your brain is giving more than is being nourished. So what we need to do is to slow down the process, keep the body calm. So if you are like this and your shoulders are up, it constricts your ability to breathe. Drop your shoulders, it increases your chest capacity. Slow your breathing down so that you can have a much deeper breath. If you are focusing on one thing, look around you, remind yourself that you are safe, and ground yourself back into the present state. But if you panic about it, it makes it worse. When we are in that state, it feels like nothing can help. But trust me, as you continue to breathe, your mind will catch up with it. Remember to breathe deeply. Ground yourself in the here and now. Drop your shoulders. Open your chest capacity. And keep yourself calm.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you very much, Dr. Miftau Idris. I know we've gone past the hour mark, and I know there might be more questions to follow, but due to time constraint, we don't intend to always overstretch our guests during these lectures. I know people, if we had joined on time, would have had all this time for question and answer. But I think maybe if you want to wrap up at this point, we'll give you maybe 1 or 2 minutes to wrap up, and then we close with the prayer.
Okay. What I would say is that, you know, like with so far as mental health is concerned, you know, it's within every community, and it's not a form of weakness. We've all been through from some form of mental health without knowing what it is. You know, kowane ciwo ya same ka sha kama da paracetamol baka san you know, but some of these things sometimes wanga kana, you know, having panic attack, stress, sha manama abumbelet, but we didn't know. You know, so ba laifi bane ciwon da ne za a yi assaulting shi out, amma bai kamata mu boye ba. Ina da wuya, ya kamata muna use wanga irin platform ga mu iya mu tanye juna mu explain. You know, on average, I treat nearly 30 people a week, and you know, and it's a normal thing that goes through. Some people even come and enjoy coming because they see it as a way of empowering themselves, how to make their life different.
Yes, right.
So, gosh, I feel abin kunya ne ba abin kunya bane. We have to talk about it more regularly with each other. We need to fight back. We need to break this, and it's possible. And I think having platform like this is a good platform to start doing something about it.
Inshallah. All right. Thank you very much for the advice. I know people are still writing in the chat. So I know we've talked about the issues, but the remedies and how to cope and then to address them are the parts that are missing at the moment. So I would like to crave your indulgence. We'll contact Sarki to be in touch with you so that we'll have you back pretty soon, so to deal with the other aspect of it, because we have been introduced to the issues, but we need to see how best we could address them, or if there are other ways of dealing with them. So once again, to our listeners, Mr. Miftau Idris runs a psychotherapeutic or psychotherapist clinic in Manchester, that's in the UK. I know with the current trend of events, a lot of consultations do take place virtually. So I've asked Sarki to text your number into the text, the chat area, so that people could have the contact details, and then whoever wants to make contact after the lecture, then the person will do so. But just a word of reminder, we will definitely knock at your doors again to get another session. And on behalf of all listeners, on behalf of Zumuntah Association UK, we are most grateful to have you. We are very proud to have a brother who definitely understands our issues much better, because you are part and parcel of the community. So therefore, you understand it better, and then all therapeutic advice and support will be much more tailored to our needs as people of African descent. So once again, we say thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, Sarki.
Doctor. Assalamu alaikum, doctor.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Barka.
Allah barka kare doctor, mun gode sosai insha Allah.
Ba laifi, ba laifi.
Kuma doctor kuma shi kuma ne chairman community Zongo community na Manchester chairman.
Allahu Akbar. So ka gani. That's good.
Insha Allah. Doctor, mu magana daga baya insha Allah.
Insha Allah. Mun gode.